Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. I have with me today guest James Hill. Hello, James. How you doing?
Hey there, Lou. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And James is a fiction writer, primarily thrillers now, or science fiction, or a bit of both.
A little bit of both, but primarily fiction thrillers, I guess.
Fiction thrillers. Okay. And what's your latest book that you've just got out?
All right, the last book I just put out, they called Killer with Ice Eyes, and
Okay.
there goes a lovely copy of her.
Nice. Yep. Hold it up to the camera so everybody can see. Awesome.
Yep. Trying not to get the glare.
Yeah. Looks very nice. Very
Yeah,
nice.
there we go.
Did you do that yourself or you hired somebody?
Well, this is a model that I know.
Oh, okay.
So I got her to model it for me, and the background and everything was done by a girl that I know named Neighbor out
Oh,
in
okay.
California. So,
Oh,
so she modeled the shot, and then Neighbor did the background.
okay. And I forgot to mention that you're not just an author, but you also are a publisher.
Yep, there we go.
And
That's the
there you
old
go.
logo right
Rock Hill.
there.
Oh, this man's got the swag going. All right.
Uh-huh.
Very good.
That was done by my nephew.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. All right. So we'll get into to that as well. But let's find out a little bit about yourself first. Um, what's jumping out at me is that you spent some time in Fort Apache, the Bronx, which is like the Paul Newman movie.
Yes. Yes, I'm glad you picked up on that one.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough, so.
Yeah, here you go. I remember when Fort Apache was Fort Apache.
Yeah, it's not anymore.
It got a lot of nice houses now, one family
Oh,
houses. You know, they
okay.
burned down most of the Bronx or most of that area.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so all
Okay.
the tenements, a lot of the tenements and things like that got burned out, and
All
they
right.
started building smaller high rises and single family houses. So
Oh, okay.
it has changed over the years.
Okay.
Um,
It sounds like
not
for the
sure if the
better.
people have. Yeah, not sure if the people have, but the neighborhood has.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. So let's talk about this whole writing thing. Growing up, were you a big reader?
Yeah.
Okay.
Started off reading comic books and started
Mhm.
writing comic book because of um, what's his name? Lee. You know,
Stanley,
Stan Lee. Yep.
right?
And I would read some of the comic books, and then we would be tracing them out, and I try to
Right.
finish the story, write the next section of the
Oh, okay.
story. So that's
Very
what
cool.
got me started writing.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, I had all these characters and stuff running around my head, and
Mm,
a great imagination.
right.
Uh, my dad used to say that I talk so much I even talk to myself, which was true because I was speaking to the people in my head.
Right. Is there a tradition of storytellers in your family or?
uh, Not really,
Okay.
but most of my family know me as being the writer of the family. But
Right.
we was always into books and stuff like that. My mom read me and my brothers, books when we
Okay.
were kids, and so
Right.
I grew up reading sci-fi and things like that, uh,
Okay.
pirate stories and all
Mm,
kinds of fantasies and things. So uh, we was already very literary.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And do you have any favorite authors or series, books or whatnot?
Stephen King
Good
replaced
man.
or not really replaced, but added to Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
So yes, I have a very dark nature.
Yeah. Well, you can tell by my bookshelf behind me that I'm a big Stephen King fan. So.
Yeah, and so Stephen King. As I got a little bit older, Stephen King became my go-to writer. I
Right.
see you have the robot up there. That's
Yeah.
really
Lost in
nice. Yeah,
Space. Yeah.
Lost in
Yeah.
Space. Yes,
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. See, we must be of the same vintage.
yes.
Okay. So so you were doing the comic books and you were reading SF and that. When did you get serious about writing fiction?
Uh, Well, back in when I was a teenager, early 20s, I guess, I
Okay.
was writing some poetry. I was writing short story. I figured it'd be easier to break into the publishing world writing short stories than novels because it took me a
Yep.
year or two to write a novel, whereas
Right.
I could pump out about 4 or 5 short stories in the meantime.
Okay.
So I started working like the short story angle.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had a job delivering newspapers. I got the job to deliver newspaper. I think it was the Wall Street Journal, one of those
Mm.
very heavy papers. And I took it
Okay.
because they were in Publishers Row. So they
Okay.
would. So I took the one that took you to Midtown Manhattan between the 20s and the 40s, and that's where all the publishing houses are and
Okay.
all the publishers are. So I would
Mm.
go at night delivering papers, and of course I would also slide my work underneath the door to
Ah,
the different magazines and publishing houses, figuring,
right.
okay, this is the way to get in, and they'll
Yep.
read this and they'll just be blown away and amazed with me. And
So how did that work out for you?
I got a lot of rejection notices
Yeah.
because you have to hone your craft.
Right.
So I would say
Right.
I recently went through some of my early writing, some of my short stories. I'm gonna put out a collection of
Mm-hmm.
them because some of the stories stick with you, and you're like, oh yeah, I
Sure.
remember that story. And so
Right.
I went through some of this stuff, and I looked at it, oh my god, that was horrible. That was
Mm-hmm.
horribly written. Good story, horribly written. So you you read some of that stuff, you go, oh, no wonder they rejected this.
Right. Right.
But and then I got on and became a programmer and worked in the banks and in finance and different things. Because
Mm.
that was my other love was
Okay.
writing software
Okay.
and being a programmer and things like that. So I got into that. It also paid really well. So
Right.
having to support a family, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
was really a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And so, but I never gave up my writing career. I just
Mm.
put it on the side for a while, and then came back to it about 15 years ago or so.
Okay.
Because I realized, you know what, if I don't get some of these stories out of my head, either I'm going to go crazy or I'm going to die with them. So I got to get these things out. I got to
Right.
start writing again.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what was your first big break then?
Uh, the Killer series, Killer with
Okay.
the Heart.
Okay.
And then I finally decided, this story been rattling around in my head. I have these characters, MoJo,
Mm-hmm.
Nicky Nails, and all these mafia guys. And I grew up in like we said, we grew up in the South Bronx in gang territory, and then I
Mm-hmm.
moved to the North Bronx, which was mob territory.
No.
So I had a lot of friends who was gangsters and a lot of friends who were mobsters.
So you just wrote what you knew.
So no, no, that's what they say, right? What you know. So
Yeah.
So I got into that, and that's why I say I'm
Okay.
more of a thriller writer now
Okay.
because I haven't written as much sci-fi from the early days as I
Mm-hmm.
have written to get these 4 books out. Killer with Ice Eyes is the last book in the series, so I
Okay.
finally finished that series. It took me a good 10 years to get it all out.
Okay. And what's the do you have an elevator pitch for the Killer series?
Yeah, the elevator pitch goes uh, blood, bombs, and wait a second, what is it? Bullets, blood, and bombs. To
Okay. Wow.
that that's the uniting force between MoJo and Nikki as they rise through the underworld to become international criminals.
Okay. So is that a like a couple team or is it two guys or two
It's
girls?
2 guys.
Two guys.
One's the son of a mobster, and his
Mm.
his ambition is to become the mob boss, the Godfather. And the other guy, MoJo, is a gang leader in the South Bronx. He starts off as a gang leader, and he has no real ambition other than to become successful.
Okay.
And as successful, that means anything that he thinks is going to be profitable or uh, that just a success in business. He doesn't have this grandiose idea of having this big organization, but he
Right.
has an idea that whatever he do, he's going to make money and further himself along. And
Okay.
so the two of them team up together at teenagers because Nicky sees these people dropping money off in his neighborhood a mafia
Mm,
money drop, and he thinks they're skimming money off the mob and stashing it in his neighborhood, which makes it fair game for him to rob them.
okay.
And
So
so, yeah,
so you've got these two characters. Who's the bad guy in the story, or is there a bad guy?
they're all bad guys, as I
They're
was
all bad
told.
guys. Okay. Well, there
As I
must
was told,
be
they're all
somebody.
bad guys.
There must be somebody badder than the bad, or
Yes.
is there a cop or something that's trying to get
Well,
them?
because of the storyline, Nikki's arch rivals are the Manoa family.
Okay.
So his family is has his father as a mob boss, and this other mob boss, the Manoas, live in the next neighborhood, and that's why he's gonna rob them. And it turns out that the Manoas are the ones who are behind this money drop, and
Okay.
so they are skimming money off the mob, which becomes apparent when they rob the place. And
Okay.
so it sparks a mob war between the Manoas and the Roxys.
Okay. Wow. Sounds pretty intense. The books in your series, it's Killer with a Heart, Killer with Three Heads, and um,
Killer with
the
Black Blood and
Black
Killer
Blood,
with Ice Eyes.
Ice Eyes. And is it a different killer in each book,
Well,
or is that a spoiler?
that's kind of a spoiler because you got to
Okay.
try to figure out why is it Killer with Black Blood? Why is it Killer with Ice Eyes? You know,
Okay.
so sometimes it's the same person,
Hmm.
sometimes it might be somebody else in the story. Uh,
Okay.
that that
And
that draws you to that.
right. And so the latest book is Killer with Ice Eyes, right?
Yes.
That you just showed. And so what's the elevator pitch for that book?
Okay. I'm going to read it from the back because it's better. Maria,
Okay.
raised in the mafia and educated by gangs of New York, is hunting the man who killed her, Aquilina, and she will kill anyone who gets in her way.
Wow. Sounds like a nice girl to take home to mom. And so how does she
She's Morris's daughter.
okay.
She's Morris's daughter. So she grew up in
Is
this
that
world
Mojo?
of underworld of crime. But by this time, Morris and Nikki are both, high up in the underworld. So
Okay.
they,
So
they,
is
yeah,
sorry, is Morris also at Mojo?
yes.
Okay. And what's
His name
Mojo
is
stand for?
Morris. Right. His name is Morris Johnson.
Oh, okay.
So his
So he's got
friends call him
Mojo.
Mojo.
He's got Mojo.
Yes.
All right.
It comes from the
Okay.
Doors story, or the
Right.
Doors song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Mojo Horizon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So, uh, and how is Mojo and Nikki taking to this killer's purpose, her mission that she wants to get the revenge? Are they trying to
Well,
help her? Are they trying to stop her?
uh, well, they know they can't stop her.
Okay.
And so the idea is that she wants revenge. Uh, Mojo never believes that the guy who killed Aquilina was dead. He was a government agent.
Okay.
And so they were trying to get Mojo, who became an international criminal and an arms dealer.
Mm,
So that's where he was making his money in developing weapons and selling them to the United States and anybody else. So
okay.
they they wanted to get his information
Mm,
and wanted to get an exclusive with him that he would only sell weapons to the United States. And so in
okay.
order to do that, they kidnapped his daughter when she was young, when she was a little girl. He
Uh-huh.
was supposed to have been dead because since the thing that happened with the mob, he had to actually fake his death and everything. And him
Okay.
and Nikki still worked together and
Oh,
and
okay.
like that. So he was out of New York, but working with Nikki and running the international part of the business.
Mm,
And so him and Nikki always stayed in touch or whatever until he disappears.
mm,
So in order to bring him out of hiding or wherever they were, that's in Kill with Three Heads. So in order to bring him out of hiding or whatever, because the government was trying to track him and knew he was behind these weapon sales, they
okay.
kidnapped his daughter Maria.
Mm,
And Aquilina is the Russian that he and as her babysitter when she was born. So they're
Mm,
involved with the Russian mob, and it's all kinds of stories involved in these four books. The story
right,
that goes on and on between the four books and builds bigger and bigger and more intricate plots.
right.
So
And
basically, it's a story of revenge.
oh, okay. Is are any of the events in these books based on your real life experiences growing up in those areas?
I would have to say no to that because
Okay,
they're all
just
crimes,
to
and
keep
some
yourself
crimes
safe.
don't go away. The FBI would be at my door in a moment if I said
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and at my back door would be the mob, and
right,
so depends on whose door I open as to what happens to me later.
right.
But
So,
they're built on things that I know or heard, or like I said, I knew a lot of mobsters, I knew
right.
some gangsters, so
Hmm.
people talk and you hear different stories, but all the stories in the book are made up. All the crimes are made up crimes. So put it
Okay.
that way.
All righty. So this is the fourth book in the series. Do you have an idea of how many books that the entire series is going to be, or?
That's it. That's the end of the Killer series.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to work on another crime story sometime in the near future. I have another series going on, which is the Gemstone series, which is a
Okay.
historical fantasy about mermaids and pirates,
Oh, okay.
and it
Wow.
jumps around in time.
Mm,
So we go from the Age of Pirates. The second one I'm working on now, called the Ruby Cradle, goes backwards in time to the Age of Castles, where the mermaids are fighting the dragons. So
mm,
we have three different beings that run the world. You have
right.
mermaids, dragons, and men.
Okay.
Humans live the shortest amount of time, right?
Hmm.
We only live to 75, 100 years.
Right.
We tap out at about 100, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Mermaids live 1,000 years,
Okay.
and dragons are supposed to be immortal.
Mm,
They they they're supposed to be unable to die.
okay.
So, but a little secret, that's not actually true.
Okay. And
Everything
then
that lives can die.
right. And in this world that you've built, can dragons talk to people,
Yes,
or so they're intelligent?
they're sort of like a mental telepathy type thing.
Okay.
So the mermaids, the dragons, even men can learn to have mental telepathy and communicate.
Okay.
So they manipulate the world as it is. The mermaids, the dragons, and the dragons are sort of like the ruling class. So
Mm,
and the men are pretty much caught in the middle.
okay.
So the men are pretty much caught in the middle between the mermaids on one side and the dragons on the other side.
Okay.
And so people are what are the pawns that they use to control the world.
Right. So this is a power struggle for who's going to come out on top.
Yes,
It's kind of a Game of Thrones
very much.
vibe.
Although I never watched any of the Game of Thrones
Oh, okay.
until I finish writing those books, I will not watch the Game of Thrones.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for
Try
sure.
not to. I don't want to usurp anybody else's ideas. So
Yeah.
I just
So is your writing process different for writing thrillers versus fantasy?
um
Like fantasy is a lot more pre-work, right? You have to do a lot
yeah,
of world building.
yeah. There's more world building in it. But if you do historical fantasy, the worlds are already built. You just have to populate them with
Okay. But
people.
that's still
So
takes research,
it
though,
still
right?
takes research, yes, because you have to
Yes.
research the time period that you're writing about. So,
Okay.
like in the Age of Pirates, in the first one called the Emerald Lady, it's all about big ships and
Hmm.
the Revolutionary War
Okay.
and the different sea battles that we had there, like the blockade of Baltimore and the
Okay.
Chesapeake Bay. I live in Virginia Beach, and one of the places that I work at down here is the naval station, and that thing been in operation since 1735 or something, when it
Okay.
was originally owned by the British,
Right.
and so it predates the American Revolution.
Wow.
And part of what made America grow so fast and so big was all the wood that we have. because
Hmm.
as the big ship era came into being, Europe was pretty much depleted of forests and all the ships that they need, all the wood they needed for these ships.
Right.
They come to America and they say, hey, there's wood as far, trees as far as the eye can see.
Mm.
So that what made America really one of the spots, and that's what actually caused the colonies to bloom.
Okay.
Because
All
people
right.
think that, well, what really turned it over, it was actually wood more than anything else, because we
Okay.
became a big shipbuilding
All
and
right.
wood processing place.
Okay. See, your research has paid off. You just answered that question with a lot of
Yeah,
backing.
so that's what happens when you write fantasy. When you write historical fantasy, you don't
Yeah.
have to make everything up. You just have to read about it
Right.
and figure it out and
Hmm.
weave your story through it.
Right.
So
S-
yeah,
So, who's the main protagonist of your fantasy series then? Is it a human?
Jeremy is the sailor
Okay.
and Shira is the mermaid.
Oh, okay.
And
Right.
then we have the different dragons.
Mm.
Icathrol is in the first one, but he's the last of the dragons, and they let him know where all the captured dragons were, in order,
Okay.
because the Rahima is Shira's mother, and she's the
Hmm.
queen of the mermaids, and she goes to her mother to help her rescue and save Jeremy, whose
Okay.
ship sinks in a hurricane. And the
Right.
mom is like, absolutely not. He sealed his fate when he went to sea. You should have
Hmm.
let him drown. And so Shira decides she's going to save him because she
Mm.
fell in love with him at
Mm.
first sight. Now, men always fall in love with mermaids, naturally,
Right.
right? But mermaids do not fall in love with men.
Mm.
But she did, because she realized that this guy had a good heart and everything. So she
Okay.
so she tried to save him, and she
Hmm.
caused a tragedy. And because she defied her mother, the mother curses her, and
Hmm.
her curse is that she must remain in human form. She can't
Mm.
transform back into a mermaid, into a
Okay.
natural form, but she can't leave the water. She has to
Mm.
always be near the sea or surrounded by water.
Right.
And
Right.
Jeremy decides he will be fine with that. He'll take care of her. And the mother said, "Good, because as long as Shira's alive, you can't die."
Mm.
And that's when he finds out that mermaids live for 1,000 years.
Wow.
So now he's tied to this woman for 1,000 years, and of course
Mm.
she's only like 300 years old.
Okay.
And then the mom, of course, is going to torture the two of them. you
Of
know,
course.
it's not going to be an easy life.
No.
So that's where
Yeah.
they get back to the other mermaid. They figured that was a harsh sentence and everything, and so she
Okay.
causes this war, which then turns into the American Revolutionary War.
Oh, wow. Cool. Very cool. So, how many books are you planning for that series?
Three.
Three. And how
Yeah,
many have you got now?
I got two of them that are half written. So I'm
Okay.
working on the second one now, and the third one is called the Diamond Warrior, and
Hmm.
so that's why I call the Gemstone series, because you have the Emerald Lady, the Ruby Cradle, and then the Diamond Warrior. So we
Right.
go from the Age of Pirates back to the Age of Castles, which starts at the fall of the Roman Empire, when
Okay.
we start
Wow.
with kingdoms and kingdom building.
Hmm.
Then we're going to come forward to the modern age, which
Right.
is after the Crimean War. When we
Okay.
get into the modern era of
Right.
warfare and everything.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're gonna be busy for the next couple of years. And then
Yeah, I think so.
and then on top of that, you've got your publishing company that you're running. Is
Yeah,
that a one-man operation, or do you have a team? Like, how is that
it's
working for
pretty
you?
much a man and woman operation.
A man and woman. Okay.
I'm the publisher, and I have my editor, Athena
Hmm.
Paris, and she lives in South Africa.
Oh,
And
wow.
together we put together the books of Rock Hill Publishing.
Okay. So how uh, how do you determine what books you're going to publish beyond your own? Are you assuming you're publishing other authors too?
Yes, very much
Okay.
so.
Okay.
And we have the website,
Hmm.
rockhillpublishing.com. And when we're ready for submissions, we open up our submission page. and
Okay.
we get submissions through that way. And then we go through the submission. We look at things that look interesting.
Okay.
Like all publishing companies, it's all subjective.
Sure.
Yeah. So if it looks interesting to me, then and it looks interesting to her, and we decide, okay, this looks good. It looks well written. We
Mm-hmm.
can go ahead and push this. So we do romance, sci-fi, fantasy, adult uh, novels, women's literature. I have Patty who wrote a very good story called what is it, Between February and November, which is a woman's literary story about a romance on the rocks, or marriage on the rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and that's doing really well. I
Okay.
got Mark Everglade, who writes cyberpunk novels, and we're
Okay.
about to publish his third novel in the series. So
Mm.
and I didn't even know what cyberpunk was until I read Mark's story, and I was like, oh man, this is really good. And then I found
Okay.
out, okay, so there's a whole genre
Yep.
that's based on
Yep.
cybernetics
Cyberpunk,
and yeah,
steampunk. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
yeah. So
Very good. So that must cut into your writing time a little bit.
it cuts into my writing time a lot.
I was trying to play it down, but
Yeah, it cuts into it quite a bit. But when you have something that's really good, you have to put aside your stuff and you know give it the full attention that it
right.
deserves.
Okay. That's good. And based on what you just said, you're open to all types of all genres of writing fiction.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you
I
do
just don't.
nonfiction or
I just don't do nonfiction.
nonfiction? Okay.
Yeah, because
All
when
right.
people want to write memoirs and true historical novels and everything, there's a lot of research you got to do, fact finding. You
Mm-hmm.
got to go back and check everything that they write and make
Right.
sure that you're not defaming somebody. That because
Mm-hmm.
people have subjective memories too,
Right.
and so you can't always count on the memory being, what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point, you as the publisher are responsible for what you publish, even though
Right.
there's the indemnity clause and the contract and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stop you from being sued.
No, I'm sure. Yeah.
So it just becomes too much work. Sci-fi fiction, you
Mm-hmm.
got that little thing. No, this does not reflect any true living person. Blah blah blah, and all that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Right.
Even that doesn't really stop you from being sued, but you could say, well, the story is not true. You could tell by the story that's being written.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
as long as you don't
All
say
right.
something too horrible about somebody.
Yeah. Okay. And your publishing company is at rockhillpublishing.com, as you mentioned, and uh, your books and all your other writers' books are they can access links as to either buy
Yeah,
it from you or from
they can
the
buy it from
usual
me. They
outlets.
can buy it through Amazon or any other book outlet that they want.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, you can get it directly from the website though, and you can
Okay.
order it from there.
All righty. I think that's all the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to mention that hasn't come up during the course of our talk?
Yeah, I'm writing a horror story now.
Oh, a story or a book?
No, no, no. It's an actual novel.
A
I
novel.
finally,
Okay.
I finally broke into the horror novel business,
Oh,
which I've
okay.
been trying to do for years, and I just could never. I wrote some horror short stories, but I could
Right.
never get a full enough story to make a novel. So,
Okay.
so I'm working on a book now called "The House of Sun and Shadow." So it's a
Okay.
paranormal story that takes place in the Napoleonic era
Okay.
in Europe, in Germany.
Okay.
So uh, it's about witches and vampires at some point.
Oh,
We
that's a good
become
mix.
yeah. So it's more about the horror of domestic horror than it
Mm,
is about the real vampire type stuff.
right.
But
Right.
but that comes into it too towards the end when when the person becomes a vampire.
Right.
Uh, but it's more about how this person, the Grand Duke, become this horrible, horrible person.
Mm.
Because of him, you now have a vampire or vampires.
Okay. Wow. Very
Yeah.
cool. And when do you plan for on that being done?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe next year.
Next year. Oh,
as,
okay.
as I'm working on this one, I got about
Right.
50,000 or so words on that one done.
Okay.
When I get finished with the Ruby Cradle, which is
Mm.
about 50,000 or so words in, and I should be finished that. I was hoping to be finished that by the end of this year, and I still might. I still might
Okay.
finally finish that story. It's been sitting
Right.
on the back burner for like 2 or 3 years now, so I need to
Oh,
get it.
okay.
I need to shovel some more coal in there and get that thing booked.
Okay, well, I wish you all the success with that and with all your other projects. I want to thank you for your taking the time to do this interview, and it was a blast talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. And you get something done, we'll have you back on again.
All right. All right.
All right, it
Well,
was
look for
a
me when
pleasure.
the Ruby Cradle gets done.
Okay, sounds good. It was very nice to meet you, James. Best of wishes, best luck with all your projects.
Yep. Stay warm.
Yeah, we'll try. Okay, thank you. Take care now.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye bye.